Hi everyone. Today I'm going to walk you through creating regions in Sinespace. We're actually going to cover a couple of things today. We're going to cover the easiest way of creating a region, and that's using a template using the in-game client, and that will let you tweak and customize your room using furniture and items that other creators have created in region designs that other creators have created, and that will be a fairly quick tutorial. And then we'll actually jump into how to create your own regions from the bare basics, that is to actually upload your own designs, and that process is actually pretty straightforward, and we will be using Unity for that one, but we'll cover that in a second. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just hop in world, and I am going to create a new region. So we're just in the welcome setting here. So the first thing I want to do is actually just want to hit the home button at the bottom of the screen. So when you hit that button, it'll actually, the very first time you hit it, it'll actually create your region automatically. But if you don't have one, what we can do is we can actually click this Create New Room button, which will be in your list of regions. So I'm just going to create a new room, and it should show up at the end here. I'm just going to enable that and enter it. Now everyone gets a free region to start with in Sinespace. You can store a fair amount of content in it. The limitations that we have are based on total storage size. So if you have, for instance, the same item copied twice, it actually doesn't count twice. You can have lots of copies of the same items and things without going over your storage limits. It is just worth noting though that the base region design does count against that. Now this is the default template that we start with. Everyone gets sort of this room to begin with. And the main thing you want to click on is this edit room button just down at the bottom. So whenever you're in a room that you can edit, this button will appear. Now the first thing it'll do is it'll actually shift the camera to an overhead view. Now this is not going to show a lot, but we can sort of see this is the floor plan of one of the interiors. Now there's a couple of ways we can change this. The camera controls at the top let you flip between a couple of modes. We can go to our avatar view, which is the normal view that you've seen before. We can go to fly cam, and if we go to fly cam, we can hold the right mouse button, and while we're holding the right mouse button, we can use the WSAD or arrow keys and the E and C keys to just move around. So as you can see here, this is the room template in the editor view. Now, the first things that we might want to do is actually just put down some furniture items. So I have a whole bunch of these that have been made by various creators, and I can show you off a little bit about the placement tools. So normally the placements are constrained to areas that the creator of the room indicated. That is to say that they've actually planned out areas that are designed for placing furniture. You probably want to be able to place them anywhere though, and the key to that is just to hold down the Alt key when you're placing. So if I grab, for instance, this item, which is just going to take a second, you can see here that as I move it around, it's okay, and this will only place in the areas that the creator has made. I'm just going to right click and that will destroy it. If I try and place this outside, for instance here on the grass, that probably won't work. And as you can see, it's not appearing. But what we can do is if you hold down the Alt key when you click, and we can click, it will place where the cursor is, regardless of what the region designer intended. Once you've actually got your sort of furniture and items that have been placed in your region, what you can do is you can just select the item, and it'll bring up properties and all the rest of it, and you can use the built-in movement widgets. If you've used the Unity 3D editor, you'll notice that these have actually been designed to be identical. So we actually respect a lot of the same keyboard shortcuts that Unity does. So if you, for instance, we've got the various controls and gizmos are actually fairly identical to Unity's. So if you hit the modifier keys and so forth, you'll find that they actually behave exactly the same way. For quick reference, if you want to switch between tools quickly, so say you want to switch between the rotation and the scale tools and things, the Q, W, E, R, T, and Y keys are the ones that actually flip between the various tools. You can sort of see here that as I push buttons. It's just a quick way of being able to scale and rotate things around the region. So that sort of covers the very basic of placement. There is also a couple of things worth noting, and that is our snap tools. So hopefully these items have been set up correctly. That will be our catch today. So when you place an item in the region by that, and you place another one next to it, it will actually try and snap it together, which we will hopefully be able to demonstrate here. So I think I've got snap. Yes, I do have snap off. So at the top there's these buttons for snap alignment stuff. I'm just going to click align. And I just need to delete that item. You can just select it and hit the delete key incidentally for that. don't know, this one's actually been set up properly, so I may not be able to. Oh, there we go. So you can actually see as you move things close to another item, it'll actually automatically try and line them up for you as they sort of approach something that they could actually be pushed against, which is just a little tool we've added that we hope is useful for many people. I don't know how many of these furniture items can be configured to do this as well, but not every furniture item has the alignment information in it or not. Some of them do, some of them don't. Yeah, so these ones unfortunately do not. Certainly the newer ones. As a creator, just we can explain the bits and bobs of how to get the best results, but the key one is just try and keep your mesh and the furniture item settings on the same component if you can. Okay, all right, so we've covered sort of the basics of that stuff. Now, when a region designer builds one of these templates, they actually have a lot of options they can put to. This one doesn't have a lot of them. As you can see, the options one is actually empty. But you can, for instance, change light colors and so forth. You can actually specify how these things are supposed to behave. Again, there's not a whole lot in this particular one, but as a creator, you do actually have some fairly wide amounts of options here. I don't actually have any materials here, but you can make things like textures and things that can be swapped between values fairly easily. So I'm just going to close that one out. And we're just going to show you how to swap to another template. Now, I don't know if I've actually got any other templates. No, I've only got the welcome center one, but if you own another template and they're available in the shop, you can just click this design tab and it'll actually show you all your base templates. You can swap your region design for one of those. And that's actually what we'll get into in a second when we pull up Unity, is how to make those templates and things as well. So that covers the basics of the in-game tools. So I'm just going to save this, and that will persist all the changes. What you can do is if you make a mistake, for instance, you really don't like the redesign you just did, you can actually just close the room editor without saving. And when you do that, you can revert back to how it was when you first hit the edit room button. Okay, so that covers inworld. Let's go to Unity. So for those who aren't familiar with Unity, Unity is kind of like Photoshop for 3D level design. I think that's probably the closest analogy that we can make. So if you want to build really high quality content that just looks and feels amazing, has got amazing material properties and things, the great thing about working with the Unity editor is that you've got access to a million different tools that do a million different things. And that can be a little bit overwhelming at first, but it's easier than it looks. And once you get up to speed and actually start working with the full range of tools, you're going to discover just how much power you have sitting under the hood that you can begin to work with. So I'm just going to fire up Unity, and we're going to do it with a new project. So actually, we'll do it with the project that I did from the Artist Masterclass. I'm just checking this is the right version. I've got a couple of versions of Unity installed. You would normally have one, but as a developer, we're testing against a few versions. So I think I might have fired up. Oh no, I did get the right one. Yesterday I showed you the process of actually getting this set up with the learner clothing tutorial. Today I'm going to talk you through those steps, but I won't actually follow them because it does take a little bit of time. But the process is very straightforward, and if you do get stuck, feel free to just look at the first 5 minutes of the previous tutorial I did, because it's got a few more of the details. So what we've done, and I'm just going to do this very, very quickly, is we've gone to get to where we are, we've gone to the wiki, that is wiki.sine.space. We recommend a bunch of versions and editor packs and things for working with Sinespace. We recommend that you download that version, so that if you click the download button, it'll give you the information on where to get the right versions, and then it'll give you what we call an editor pack. And the editor pack basically gives you all of our tools and uploaders and things that come with it. So that process is fairly straightforward. What you want to do is you want to just download and install Unity. You will need to register an account with Unity in order to start up the editor. That is a separate account from your Sinespace account, so just be aware of that. It's a free package, so you shouldn't have any problems with it. Then what you want to do is you want to create a new empty project in a directory that you want to store the files in. And then finally, you double click on the editor package that we provide, and Unity will import it. And if you've done it correctly, you'll get this screen when it starts up, this Sinespace editor pack. And you just click the install editor pack button once, and then finally you click the login to editor, where you just enter a username and password and stuff that will give you the basics of getting up to speed. So today we are going to work with creating a new region. Now there's a couple of ways we can do this. We can either set it up all by hand, which is a little bit of a pain, or we can just click one button. So if you notice here on this window that pops up, there's this create a new region button. Now you can also access that same button from the file menu. If you just go file and then there's new Sinespace scene. When you push that button, it will do this. It will create a new blank scene with a flat cube in it that is ready to upload. What we can do is, in fact, we can almost upload this one straight away. It has also popped up this smart lighting presets button, and this will actually let you flip between a couple of lighting presets we provide, and also give you the ability to create your own one with some very basic properties there. I'm not going to do that right now because I think that we'll just go with this default lighting rig. It's given us an okay one. So what I am going to do is I'm going to get this one ready to upload. So what we need to do is we just need to click. So this scene has a couple of things in it. I actually can walk through them. So we've got the cube. That's basically just where we're going to land on a solid surface, so we don't just fall constantly. As amusing that would be, it's also probably not what you want. So this one's just a basic object. This is a simple 3D mesh of cube. We've got a landmark. Now the landmarks define sort of where players arrive in a scene. Now what you notice here is that there is a sort of a gateway with an arrow pointing out of it. That is indicating the direction and the position where the player is going to arrive. And then we've got a circle attached to it. And that actually is the area. And they'll arrive within a random area within that circle. So we can make that bigger or smaller, and just to be aware that the players will arrive somewhere in that zone. That's probably the only real thing. We've got a sunlight in here. That's just a simple light. It's a directional light that's coming from there, and will give us sort of shadows and things. So if I add a cube to this scene, if I just go to the game object, 3D cube, and go here, you'll see we've got our shadows and things coming off in that sunlight. So this is a fairly basic scene, but it is actually set up to be ready to go. So to upload it, you just need to click the space menu at the top, and you can go to scene settings, and this will give us all the info we need about a particular region. So what we need to do is we need to fill out what we call the virtual good, and that basically tells us a bit of information about the item, where it should be categorized, the name of the item, all that kind of stuff. And it's shared with regions as well, because regions can actually be passed around as inventory items. So you can just package up your whole environment and give that to a friend. You can also sell them on the store as templates. So the basics are we just need to fill out everything until these warnings are gone. The ones with orangey yellow exclamation mark, those are warnings. They don't necessarily have to be fixed, but there is probably a good reason to do so. So for instance, you can see here this one says that if we don't specify a category, it won't appear in our inventory. So we probably want to do that. The red ones are hard errors though. Those ones you just simply can't upload it until you've actually done it. Some things like the icons and so forth, those you don't have to have when you initially upload it, but if you want to sell it through the marketplace, you've got to provide those items. So first things first, we'll just go to the basics. We'll just pick a category. So I'm just going to pick room. This is going to be whatever. It'll be urban. You can actually change these categories incidentally. If you want to make a new category, that's perfectly fine. Just be aware that if you make a new category, it does have to be approved. So it may delay how long before the item actually appears in your inventory, because we've got to assign a category code to each of them. I'll leave the rating as everyone. You can alter those as you will. Please do tag any mature content, because that does need to be tagged in the system. Okay, so the next thing is we just need to specify names. This region is going to be default with a cube. It's a very original name. Whoops, sorry. Oops, and we'll set this code. So that, if you're doing updates to existing items, you can also use release notes here just for reference to indicate to users what you've actually changed. Okay, so the pricing, I'm going to set this one to not for sale. Now, if it's set to not for sale, it won't appear in the marketplace. If it's set to sale, it will appear in the marketplace, and you can specify the prices. As per before, if you just mouse over every entry, it'll give you a little bit more information about exactly what you need to do in order to use whatever setting you're looking at. We need to specify some icons. I'm going to leave this alone. We can take some screenshots and things later, but for now, I'm not going to. And we'll author. We're just going to set the author. So we'll set that to Adam Frisbee, and I'm just going to set the copyright to Sine Wave. This isn't directly exposed to users, but we do use it in the event that we get various copyright complaints and things. So please do fill them out. If you leave in here, for instance, see my account, that's okay as well. If you are, however, building something with multiple authors that have multiple copyrights, please do fill out an accurate copyright string, just so we can handle things in a complaints, because otherwise we need to come to you and you could have your content pulled down if someone's making a complaint. We're unable to ascertain the legitimacy of it. Okay, next thing is we've just got these upload buttons, but we're just going to leave that alone for the moment. Okay, so we've got the next group of settings is the scene settings, and these actually are very specific to regions. So we've got the features folder here, so we can do things like we can disable floating camera, which means actually disable the ability to use fly cams and external cameras. So people are stuck to just the player camera by default. We can disable flying, running, and we can specify the minimum height. The minimum height basically indicates where the floor of the region should be. If a player manages to get below that point, we teleport them back to their starting location. Just in case they accidentally fall out of the world, we want to be able to catch them and put them back somewhere. We've got the various modes. These things are documented on our wiki, so I'm not going to cover them in too much detail. We've got the preview image. This is what's shown on the explore screen. So just put a nice preview image that you like here, and you've got a loading logo image that's optional as well. You can put a little logo in there that will appear during the loading screen. So the first thing we really need to do is we actually need to set a URL short name. So this is an actual URL you can type in your browser. So we're going to specify this one is default with a cube. I'm sure that using that URL is going to be available. I can just click the reserve button. And it may ask me to save the scene. No, not yet. Okay, so I've now reserved the URL for this this scene, so that will be permanently reserved for me until it's released back, which you have to do yourself explicitly. We've got a bunch of platform settings here. These cover sort of very specifics on how the environment should render on certain devices. So for instance, standalone is the default one. That's the downloadable player. We've got the WebGL player, which covers our HTML5 client, and the various other options, mobile console, etc. So we can skip past that for now. You guys don't need to know too much about it. We have a couple of little warnings down here that are easy to fix. We've got one about baking a navigation mesh. Now, if you've got things like pets in the scene, a navigation mesh basically lets them know where is navigable in the scene. So we're just going to save this scene, and I'm going to save it into a new folder. Now, I always recommend working in a subfolder of the directory Unity normally gives us. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call this one Learner 2. This is our second Learner lesson, and we're just going to call this default with a cube. Okay, just bake nav mesh again. Okay, and that's baked. Great. We can leave all the other settings alone. So this region is now good to go. If I hit the upload button, just to save, and give it just half a second. There we go. We've now got the scene. This will now be accessible on our preview servers in just a minute. So if you sort of hop in the client into the preview servers, you'll be able to access the scene and environment. As I said at the start, doing this within Unity is actually a lot simpler than it looks. It actually is a very straightforward process to get regions up and running. What we can do is we can cover some of the stuff about the room floor. I'm obviously running this a bit a bit ahead of schedule. So to create a room floor, which is the ability to actually do that region editor and be able to use it as a template, what we want to do is we just want to create an empty game object in the scene. So just at the top, create empty. We'll just call this floor. I'm just going to add a floor component. So it's room floor is the one we want to use. And now a region can actually have multiple floors attached to it. A floor is basically a kind of partition. So it's a parcel of buildable land and environment. If you can have more than one of them, a region owner can actually delegate the floor to another player. So you can actually parcel a region out into multiple little parcels, and each can have their own area within the region. So you do need to specify things like a name and description for them. So if this one's just going to be the default, which will be our one area. If there's only one area, then those won't be displayed. And we need to specify colliders. Now, colliders are basically used for that quick placement, and also the alignment on walls and things. These basically indicate where we think that players will want to be able to place furniture. So what we do is we just drag objects into that. So I've got this floor here, so I'm just going to drag that onto the placement colliders. When you do that, it'll add it to the list, and that means that this floor is now the area that's intended to be placeable by the inworld build tools. Now the next thing we need to do is specify our focus. Now a focus is a small little object that should be placed roughly on the ground. So it should be an invisible object, So as you can see here, this is where the placement of this one is. And I'm just going to move this onto the ground. This will take a second to figure out exactly where the ground is, but around there-ish. It doesn't have to be precise, but it should be nearby. And the focus, if we just call it that, is basically where the camera should be focused on when it's in the overhead view. So the focus basically acts as, okay, this is where the floor is. The next thing we can do is specify the default zoom from focus. And this is how high up the camera should be from the focus. So it should be about ceiling height, preferably, or as high as you can go. So 30 or so is really ideal, but not everything has got like 30-meter ceilings available. In fact, that's quite unusual. We've got an optional field that constrain focus to area, and that just stops the camera from getting outside of a box. And when that's specified, it basically just makes it a little bit easier when working with the camera, that if you accidentally try and push too hard, it'll lock you to the corner and you can't get lost. Again, those modes are aimed at sort of new users. There's a bunch more settings like the lighting controls, the material controls, configurable buttons and such. Those items you can ignore. Those items don't really need to be filled in. We have got a whole bunch of YouTube tutorials showing exactly how to use those components. So if you look up the room and furniture playlist on our YouTube channel, you'll be able to see all that information. So this is basically also good to go. All you need to do is just go back to the scene export settings, or just go space scene settings, and then we could just upload again. So I've already put a version up. So just, yes, we'll save. It will upload, and now the changes I've made will now be applied to the version that's in world. So you can just keep uploading various versions of it, and everyone who has a copy will be able to get them updated. We have two servers for Sinespace content. The first one your content will land on is called the preview server, and that lets you actually log in and check out the environment before it is actually pushed onto the live servers. So the live servers are basically where customers and things are. So if you've built a region template you want to sell to other users, what you want to do is you want to just test it on the preview server, test your updates, make sure they're good. And then when you're happy with them, you push them to the live server, and everyone gets a copy updated. So everyone who already got your environment will be able to get the updates and additional features you've added without having to do anything. We have the region, and I think that it is good to go. So we'll just give it a second, but I'm just trying to think what else is useful before we actually just hop back in world and go to the region. So the other things that might be worth just touching on is lighting. I've done some things on lighting, but the window we had before was our smart lighting presets thing. You can actually pick between the presets, so we can actually pick stuff like this. You can sort of give us different themes. If we've got a camera in the scene, we can actually use that to preview some of the post effects and things as well. There is actually a lot of shiny things you can do there. But we can also use the create simple scene scheme button here, so we can actually specify stuff like what the sky color should be. As far as the lighting is concerned, the sun might be green or bluey green. I set the ground color to red. And now if we actually drop this onto the scene, you'll be able to watch what happens when we hit apply. So now that's sort of how that particular environment would be. We have basically like an empty colored sky here. We can actually tweak that as well. What we do is we've just got our learner project. We can go here and we can select it in the project view. The project view is basically listing all the files inside the project. So a project is actually just a directory containing things. We can right click here, hit create material. And we just set the shader. Now a shader is basically how things render. So this one there is one for what's it, skybox. We've got the procedural skybox, which is the one we've got actually here, so you can see this one. And to swap this out, we just need to go to the window menu and go to lighting. We just go to settings. We can just drag this material that we've just added into here, into the material view. And now, as we make changes to this material, we'll actually see the skybox will change too. So what we can do is we can make the sun bigger. I may change the sky tint so it's more of that pinky color we actually set it to. And now we've got something that actually looks a bit trippy, but this is a fairly straightforward sky. Now we've actually got in our editor pack a bunch of procedural skies that are a little bit better. If we look in the sample art directory, I've actually made a cloud skybox. You can see this is the one that we've got available. If I go to the lighting settings and just drag that into there, into the skybox material, you can see this one is one that we've actually bundled along with it. Now, I recommend that when you make changes to one of these, just duplicate it first. That's because if we import an updated version of the editor pack that we provide, it will get overwritten. So it's best if you just duplicate it first, and then we can make our changes to the copy. So I'll just go back to the lighting settings window. I usually just drag this into my sidebar here as well, just because I wonder often need to click between. And we can actually tweak some of this stuff as well, so we can set this one back to the color that we set before. Okay, so that probably gives you the sort of the basics of getting a region uploaded. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to check it out in World. So I'm just going to open up a new copy of the client. You can actually log into both the preview and the live servers simultaneously. So this one here, my avatar on the preview servers might be a little bit underdressed, so I apologize if that's the case. I've been testing stuff. So you just click the login to preview server, and we will just log in away. This may take a second. I've got to realize that there was a larger region that I'd last logged into, but I logged into it with another computer, so it'll just take a second to download some files that I haven't recently accessed. For reference, when you revisit a region, it does actually cache all the files, so that the next time you subsequently visit that region, it's quite a bit faster to actually enter. So we'll just give it the half second it needs to actually get into, and then we can take a look at what we've actually uploaded. For reference, once you actually want to get started with more advanced building, that is actually importing meshes and things, there is a lot of useful things on the Unity Asset Store. If you go to the Asset Store and just click free, there is thousands and thousands and thousands of models that you can get started with when you're building with your scenes. The only thing that we say just don't do is don't sort of abuse that, so don't download content and things that people have made and then sell it in our store, because we will get cranky at you. But that's really the only limitation on using that content, and frankly there's some really great starter content that you can really get to going with straight away. So here we go. So what we are now on is our preview grid, and the preview grid basically is a copy of the entire environment that basically is the latest and greatest versions that content creators have been working with. And what we can do is I'll just let my avatar load first. Also apparently swapped clothing and things that hasn't been worn lately. Okay, all right, so we'll just go to our, I think we call it default. We'll search for it, default with a cube. It's got no preview image because we didn't specify one, and we can just go in here, and here is the region that we made. So this is basically our region, and as you can see, it looks very similar to how it did in the Unity editor. It doesn't take very long for small regions to go through the processing information. If you've got a very large region, so for instance you've got over a gigabyte of content or whatever, it may take some time just for your region to actually go through processing before it's ready to sort of preview. But one of the conveniences of actually working in the Unity editor mode that we've got, so I'll just hop into here, is that you can actually also hit the play button. So this region we can actually hit play, and when we do, it'll just take a second. This always does take a second the very first time we do it. In a day, so every time you fire up the Unity editor, it does take a little bit of time. But as you can see here, we've actually got a copy of the interface, and we've got what we call the cowboy, who is your preview avatar. So this is how it would look when we actually get it uploaded. And you can use this to test everything. Most script functionalities and things can actually be tested in this mode. It's all fairly what you see is what you get. Hopefully it's a good introduction to creating regions in Sinespace. I've hopefully covered some of the basics. If you get stuck or need help, please feel free to reach out, because we do try and help our creator community sort of get up to speed. And if you've got anything that you think that you need an answer on, just do feel free to yell out. We are available and around. Thank you for watching, and I'm going to continue with this series with probably some other various item types and things over the next couple of days. Thank you.